Welcome to Cash Flowing $10,000 per month in US dollars on 20 houses he's never seen with Andrew Kim. That's the name of this show. This is the Truth About Real Estate Investing show. And that is the truth. And you know what else is the truth is? I don't know anyone else personally who cash flows this much with that little investment and that little effort. Yeah, my name is Rowan Cito, host of this show since 2016. I've done over 300 episodes. I'm not that smart, but I have a lot, and hence I have a lot of questions. So I ask a lot of questions. Hence, we've had over 300 episodes, over an hour long each, and a lot of answers on the show from people much smarter than I. Anyways, for some reason, people keep asking me for my research and where I plan on investing. Hence, I just put the finishing touches on a research report called The Best Places to Invest in the USA in 2024. And it took forever because there are numerous global Fortune 500 companies, and they're each investing billions of dollars into building new manufacturing facilities in the States to create thousands of jobs each. All high-paying manufacturing jobs with average salaries between $55,000 to $135,000. That's all US dollars plus benefits. Again, that's a lot of money. When you match that to the income properties I'm targeting at somewhere between the range of 100,000 to 300,000 American, with rents of 1,100 to 2,400 plus utilities, I'm looking at like 10 different cities. So I've done a lot of research. Hence, since my research report is honestly not even complete in terms of everything I've read, but it's 24 pages. Again, you can imagine the amount of analysis I've gone through and the slight bit of paralysis I'm feeling. If you want to do your own research, which I welcome you to do, I think it's a great idea to do your own diligence at any time, all the time. Feel free to chat GPT or Google any of the following companies: LG, Honda, Toyota, Samsung, Texas Instruments, TSMC, Intel, Ford, GM, Volkswagen, SKON, etc. And then after that name, the company, put in the words $1 billion investment in the USA, and then see what comes up. Read them all, because I have. You can see why this report took so long to put together. I actually put them all on a table as well, so that table is in my report as well. I'm trying to track them all in a spreadsheet that I started. I'm focusing on investments that are $1 billion and up, so I'm tracking the investment dollars, the number of jobs created with that, just in that manufacturing facility, the location. And of course, I have links to all the sources as well. And so right now my list has 21 manufacturing plants. You know, the crazy part is every time I go doing I do some research, I'm adding like one or two other job stories onto this list. So it keeps growing. Anyways, right now I have 21 manufacturing plants that are in different stages of construction, all over, each over 1,000 jobs being created, totaling over 100,000 jobs. Or that in dollars, that is $213 billion US in investment. Now compare that to, like, where this is Canada, this is a Canadian show. Apologies for anyone I'm confusing, thinking this is an American show. This is a Canadian show. I am Canadian. All my friends, I was just talking to my friend Melina in Windsor. She's telling me things are booming in Windsor. For those who don't know, Stellantis is building a electric battery plant in Windsor. Volkswagen has a partnership, and they're building a battery plant in St. Thomas, Ontario. Combine those two. So as far as I know, as far as my research shows, correct me if I'm wrong, please, out there. Correct me if I'm wrong. The total investment between those two projects is $8 billion US. In jobs, that's 5,500. To put that in perspective, the American population is 8.5 times the size of Canada. America is 8.5 times bigger in terms of population than Canada. But the Americans are receiving 27 times more investment and creating 18 times more jobs. You know the old rule of thumb that America was 10 times larger than us? Yeah, we don't have that ratio holding true in terms of investment or job creation. Also keep in mind that each of those manufacturing jobs creates 4 to 5 spin-off jobs. So the job story in the States is just incredible. And honestly, we are such a small drop in the bucket in Canada compared to what's going on in the States. And no reason to be jealous. The Americans are the global mega superpower. I've done lots of research on this as well. I track China, I track the BRICS. Welcome, completely open to having debate with anyone. if you want to see something crazy, go YouTube Paris in China, and you tell me that the Chinese have a healthy real estate development environment in China. Please tell me. Anyways, go watch that first, and then let me know if you think you should be investing more of your money into the yuan, the RMB. Anyways, so why all this economic gobbledygook? Why is it important? Because income growth drives population growth. Where people can make or save money, populations will grow, and that includes places like Tennessee, Texas, and Georgia, where there's little to no state tax and massive job growth, where people make more money. I'm getting regular questions on which cities I'm looking to invest in and to share my research. So again, it's readily available now. I've given a link in the show notes. It's too hard for me to read, so the link's in the show notes. So if you're on my email list, you will get it there. If you're not on my email list, go to thetruthaboutrelestateinvesting.ca, and on the right side, you can pick up the report there as well. All right. And I'm super excited to share with more Canadians who are feeling denied opportunity to invest here locally for good reason. And I'm talking to 2-3 investors every day about the options available in Canada versus the US. Like I honestly feel like I'm going to be able to live the American dream of earning US dollars, having rights as a landlord. I'm going to be buying affordable housing with positive cash flow. Let's go. Onto this week's show. Returning to the show is Andrew Kim from Brampton, who identifies as an American. He used to invest locally, but the return on his time wasn't there. So he sold his houses in Ontario, and he bought 20 houses in landlord-friendly USA 10 years ago. Now he cash flows over $10,000 US per month. That's cash flow from collecting rent and after paying expenses on his properties, including after the mortgage. So it was his accountant, Carmen, who was the one who guided Andrew to invest in the USA, along with several of her accounting and financial planning clients since 2008. Since then, they've combined forces to make the same opportunities available to everyday Canadians, not just the ultra wealthy, with a company they co-founded called Share. Thanks to their innovative technology and automation to bring the cost down substantially, this is now a reality. Full disclosure, I am an advisor to Share, meaning I get paid to develop their business in Canada through marketing and sales. It's honestly the most fun I've had in my real estate career. I wake up every morning excited to speak to investors and help them find opportunities in the USA. Just showing them my research, everyone gets excited and they ask for it. I've been an active investor in Landlords since 2005. And again, I'm eager to share with my clients and my community a simpler way to combat inflation and build their wealth with less risk and higher cash flow in places where investors are truly welcome. If you don't believe me, we're not welcome here in Ontario, go to my friend Kayla Andrade's Facebook page. It's called Ontario Landlord Watch, where Ontario landlords are consistently asking for help because they are in, honestly, nightmare situations where tenants are not paying their rent for months, or even worse, they're trashing their properties, and there's nothing they can do about it. I want to thank Andrew and Share for inviting me along for the ride and helping me invest in the USA. I cannot wait to start making offers in May after my rentals here are sold and closed. As I mentioned, Andrew's context of real estate and investing is very American, since he lived in California for 5 years, and he wants to go back, and he will go back as soon as he's able to. He shared it today to share what he's had, the conversations he's had with 150 Canadians so far who are interested in investing in the USA, what they've said to him. Please enjoy the show. Hi Andrew, what's keeping you busy these days?
Nothing much. Just trying to build an empire, selling U.S. real estate to Canadians.
But it's not just that. Like you're a workaholic, which is partly what got me interested investing a lot of my time and money in Share.
Yes.
Explain the workaholic part. I call you workaholic.
Yeah, I just like keeping busy. I like problems, even though when you're in them, they feel like crap, but I just do like hard problems. And I think, growing up, I was always super busy. Mm-hmm. So when I'm not doing something quote unquote productive, I feel like I'm wasting my life. So yeah, as a kid, it was just like school, piano, baseball, Kumon, like it was just endless, 7 days a week. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think that just kind of set the tone for my life, and it's just like constantly working and doing a million things, but now focusing on one or two. You know, the other two being like family and personal health, and then work, which is my business, which is still my passion. But when things are crazy, it doesn't feel great, but I still love it.
How many hours a week do you work?
Oh man, over 70, 80 probably. Yeah, for sure.
Which is interesting because you're pretty successful financially.
Yeah, it never feels like that, but yeah, I guess I'm okay. Like, I was semi-retired for a bit, but I just don't. The mind is gonna wander. The mind has problems to solve, and I was looking for interesting things to do, and found another thing to do. And I say, then I want to retire early, but I don't think I'll ever retire early. That's impossible.
It's actually my dad's medical advice to never retire.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like a family friend of ours literally had a stroke within 3 months of his retirement.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, like I think if I were to retire, it's more like maybe I'll focus on a nonprofit, but something big and impactful. Yeah. Not like more solution based rather than remedy. Like than dealing with a symptom. I want to deal with the root cause.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of root problems as Canadian investors. It's funny because when I go through like these groups, these Facebook groups that I belong to, when I see people's problems, and I think my frame of mindset now is like, what is the root problem? It used to be, you had to be super diligent. So let's take the Ontario real estate investor, for example. If an Ontario real estate investor has a problem with a tenant, I'm thinking like, sometimes you just got really unlucky. And then other times it's like, you just have to be so diligent. Like the best practice for screening a tenant is, for me, is I use single key to screen them, right? And most people call it a credit report. It's a little it's more comprehensive than that. I use front lobby for my tenants, so I report their rent on their credit, both positive and negative. And I generally meet them too before I sign. So like I take that level of diligence. The average investor does not, not even close.
Oh really?
Not even close.
Huh? What do they do?
A lot of people talk about gut feel.
Interesting. Wow. Okay.
I appreciate that. Like, so my background in school, for example, I did 2 years of commerce, which is basically prepare you to be a commercial banker. Like, would I lend to this business till I lend to you, whatever. So that's how I make my decisions. They're highly quantifiable, and I have to defend them to my wife, Jerry.
Ultimate thesis defense.
Yeah. But again, like for the everyday investor who owns like 1-2 properties, oftentimes they'll even just have their realtor do it. Yeah, I don't see that level of diligence generally in the market. I don't remember where I'm going, but now my frame of mindset now is also knowing what is available in the States. Full disclosure, when I'm like, the root problem is the property is located in Ontario, and is rented to a long-term tenant. That's your root problem.
Right.
You need to solve that root problem, right? Because I literally had a friend on the weekend message me and say, "Hey, I think we need to start a lobbyist group against the federal government. For us landlords need to get together, to lobby for us federally." I'm like, my policy has always been, I'm not fighting government.
Right. Yeah.
And then I thought about it for a little bit longer. I thought, what we're doing now. So literally content. I told you content that I've put out. I have friends who are literally sending it to MPs in Ottawa, and MPPs in Ottawa. It's in Toronto. MPPs are in Toronto, saying this is what happens when you basically choke Ontario landlords. Is the capital will leave. So I think by making opportunities available to Canadians, Ontario investors, available in landlord-friendly USA, everyone's going to see the rental supply drop from mom and pop investor, and they'll see capital flow south. And I think that will get more attention than anything else. Plus, I'll make some money. And I'm doing it myself.
Yeah. I've
sold 3 properties of my own. Like, they close in May, so my intention is to start writing offers with Sharon in May. And I'm assigning another tenant right now to leave. So I'll have a 4th property that I'll sell this year as well. So that
big year.
I'm excited. Anyways, so you've had about 150 conversations now with Canadian investors.
Yeah.
Largely Ontario. What would the mix between provinces?
Oh, it's like 90% Ontario,
Okay.
like 9%
BC.
and
Yeah.
then 1% like Quebec.
Interesting. Okay. So what are Canadian investors telling you?
So majority of the ones we speak to are actually have at least one property locally, and then they've been either actively or just deterred from buying another one in Ontario. So it's either too expensive, nothing works, the numbers don't work, or two, they've been burnt real badly by a tenant, so they're a bit scared. And then you actually have some that are actually being a little bit more proactive, and they're like, I've been lucky, knock on wood, but I know this could happen, where the tenant could become a professional squatter, whatever, and I don't want that to happen. So I think I'm going to take my next investment and bring it down south.
So this seems to be what I just shared you're seeing the same thing.
Yeah, definitely.
And then so what are people interested in buying in the south?
Well, I think that's, they need a little bit of education because they didn't realize that there's different ways of actually looking at the home, like an appreciating home versus like a high cash flow home. I feel like a lot of the Canadians here, they all bank on the appreciation piece. Whereas I'm like, well, yeah, you can get...
It's what we've been sold, though.
Yeah.
Right?
Whereas in the US, we kind of have these categories of A, B, and C, where A is your higher appreciating asset. Your goal there is to kind of, be break even in a normal interest rate environment. And then C's are like high cash flowing homes where you're cash flow positive day one. The appreciation, you're going to get some appreciation, but you might not get like a Toronto or Ontario type appreciation. And those are strictly for cash flow.
Right. I'll debate you, though. We were just talking about, because my investment thesis is I'm going to buy near major manufacturing plants.
Yes.
And I've tracked real estate prices in like Alliston, Ontario, where they have Honda, 4,500 Honda jobs. Woodstock, Ontario, where they have somewhere between 2,000-3,000 jobs. And Cambridge, Ontario, where Toyota has somewhere around 7,000 jobs, somewhere around that. And those all areas have all done pretty well.
Yeah. Yeah. Like every state, and I think we're talking about C's here. Every state has C-class homes, but the C regions that we're going after, we're hoping that they become B level pricing anyways. But for the sake of being, let's call it Canadian and conservative and controlling expectations, we're going to dial it down to sort of the 100-year national average of like 3%, maybe year over year.
National average?
Yeah, but that is, even if you look at the 10 years prior to the pre-pandemic, they've crushed those numbers, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, we do that for the sake of just educational pieces, but as we search, there might be an opportunity where we do see some C classes where we dial up higher, because to your point, they might be like in a neighboring area of a region that's up and coming, manufacturing might be coming, et cetera, et cetera.
The job story in the States is just ridiculous. Every time I'm like researching something, I find another story. Like, holy cow! It's like there's like billions of dollars just flowing into the States.
Yeah, they're trying to bring a lot of the skilled jobs and manufacturing back to the U.S. And then where AI is going too. I know you're looking at all those chip factories. There's going to be a shortage, and they need those chips, and that's why NVIDIA's been making the bets. And same with Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI.
Yeah, he's talking to the Saudis about raising 10
trillions.
billion.
I think it was trillions.
I know, but I think for the immediate project he needed 10 billion. But yeah, long term he wants.
Yeah, he wants to build chips because he knows that AI is going to be chip heavy.
Yeah. Let's talk about some actual specifics on deals. For example, I see a lot of our Canadian clients are buying in Memphis.
Yeah.
Can you paint the listener a picture of what they're buying in Memphis?
Yeah, usually Memphis is in the mid 100s. You're talking 6%. I'll say cap rate, but let's call it returns. And we'll chalk that up anywhere between like a 2 and 5% annual appreciation.
And then, so if a house is in the mid 500s, what does it rent for on average?
Mid 500,000, or
sorry, you said mid 100,000.
Yeah, I thought you said mid 500. Sorry. Okay, so mid 100,000s.
Yeah.
You're talking about $1,100 to $1,200.
Right. So $1,100-$1,200 for a property around
140, 150. Yeah.
Right. So for the cap rate levers,
Six.
I've been seeing high six
Yeah.
cap rates on
Yeah.
these properties.
Yeah, you're in the sixes for sure.
And then, as a Canadian investor, I know what people have to go through to
Yeah.
get to a high six cap rate.
Yeah.
So for the new listeners, for the newer investors, you're typically buying a building, like many units, 6, 12, 30.
Wow.
You're having to what do they call it? Basically, you're turning over tenants.
Right. Yeah.
Cash for keys, whatever. You're compensating tenants to leave in order to renovate and raise the rents. And so these are like 2, 4, 6-year repositionings. Asset repositioning is what they call it.
Okay.
In order to get to like a 5 to 7 cap.
Wow. Okay.
Right. Versus we can walk into a property today at a high 6 cap.
Yeah. Yeah. And those will be, yeah, and those will improve over the next 5-10 years too, right? The cap rates will go up, the rent rates go up.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
And then more for everyday language, the cash flow is going up.
The cash flow is going up,
right?
Yes.
Because there's no rent control.
Yeah.
And the economy is improving.
Yep.
Right.
And then the mortgage options are fantastic as well.
Yeah. What are Canadian investors telling you about the differences between the investment and the mortgages, for example?
Yeah, so it takes a bit of time to try to educate them on the mortgage that we use, which is the DSCR, the debt service cover ratio mortgage. But what they're saying on the Canadian side is that they're kind of tapped out too. Their personal credit is maxed, and that they're in also a tough position. Actually, that's a good point. That a lot of their mortgages are kind of coming soon to renewal, or they've got a high rate, or it's a variable, and like it's just. They can't anticipate their cash flow because it's unpredictable because of all the different types of mortgages they have. So it sounds like it's case by case.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of spin when I'm trying to talk to them, and they're like, I don't know, like this house, I think we did it on like a 9% variable, whatever it is. And I'm like, that's really tough to track. Like, how do you actually scale when everything is so unique?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they've got a mix. They definitely max out their personal credit here to get their inventory.
Mm-hmm.
But they're like, I want to go faster. How do I go faster? And then we kind of talk about this DSCR mortgage in the US.
Right. And then how many DSCR mortgages can I have?
Oh man, there are thousands of lenders you can get. As long as the criteria of what you have to meet to qualify for a DSCR, which we can help you get there.
Right.
Works, you can do those over and over and over.
Right.
And in fact, as you become better at picking these homes, that opens up more DSCR lenders, because a lot of lenders, which you might not have heard, but that they prefer to work with investors who have a track record.
Mm-hmm.
So the more of these you have, it opens up larger pools of DSCR lenders and better rates. But yeah, DSCR by its criteria is the debt service cover ratio. So as long as you meet that specific lender's like rental income to hard cost ratio, ensuring that's exceeding, you typically can get a more preferred rate, and they'll do these over and over and over. So yeah, like one particular lender might have a limit of like 15 a year per person, per entity.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
You can buy 15 properties in a year?
Yeah. Like I'm pretty sure like if you wanted to do 20, 30, we could help you find those mortgage lenders.
Right.
Even if we exhaust one particular one. Again, there are thousands of these lenders.
And it's really as long as you can find the deal and you have the capital for the
Yeah.
payment.
And the ratio works. Yeah.
But in your experience, do you have trouble finding deals that work?
No, we don't.
Let's get into that. How does Share find deals?
Yeah, so it's personalized down to the investor. So based on, what type of house they're looking for, appreciation versus cash flow, that essentially tells us what price point they're looking at.
Right.
Below that is also the risk tolerance, and then their financing strategy. Are they using cash? Are they using HELOC? Or do they want a mortgage? And then we'll work those numbers out back into what kind of dollar amount you need to get started, and then we'll start searching across the landlord-friendly states.
Right. And we can do BRRRRs with Share. Like, for example, I see deals that come out with like a $25,000, $30,000 renovation. So my thought process is, because for my own situation, we're gonna pay down my principal residence from the sale of my three houses. We're gonna pay down. Cherry and I are gonna pay down our mortgage and then use our HELOC for the capital for our payments for properties. But because it's HELOC, it's open.
Yeah.
It's an open mortgage. I was thinking I would buy the house cash with my HELOC, do the renovation, and then go get a U.S. mortgage. I can do that with share.
Yeah. So yes and no. So the BRRRR model typically centers around the after renovation value, whereas we don't focus on that. We take a approach of like, what do we think the cash flow will be after the renovation? So we look at the after renovation value of just purchase price plus your renovation budget.
Which is fine.
Yeah, so we look at it like that. But then if we go and do refinance, any sort of lift on that is sort of the cherry on top or the gravy. So we don't target the after renovation value. So if you came to us and said, hey, I'm looking to spend $250,000 after purchase and renovation, but I want to be able to refinance at like 280. We don't back into that number, that 280 number. We'll say we're looking for a 250 home after purchase and renovation.
Right. Which is totally fine, because when we were doing this in 2005, when I started investing, we just didn't want to tie up all of our HELOC. You know what I mean? I wanted to take out my HELOC with a cheaper mortgage.
Yeah.
And even though I might be paying more on the U.S. mortgage, I view it as kind of like I'm making U.S. dollars out of thin air.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't I want U.S. dollar based mortgages when the trend is like, economically, Canada is not performing well against the Americans.
Right.
So there's an article just in the Financial Post last week that expect the Canadian dollar to depreciate. Like, we're expected to see a 71-cent Canadian dollar per the Financial Post.
So get your U.S. dollars now.
That's my point. And here I can create U.S. dollars out of thin air with a mortgage.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't I do that?
Yeah. So to your point though, we will do those types of renovations like the 25K. Yeah. If somebody needs a mortgage though, we will kind of draw the line at, let's call it the 35 to 40K range, just because the DSCR lenders typically want something that's livable. And if it's at 40K-ish renovation levels, typically you might run the risk of not getting that mortgage.
Right.
So yeah, if you've got a HELOC, then definitely that's an opportunity to go in, purchase, renovate, then go on, put it on the mortgage. That's my play.
What are some, okay, so let's go, we talked about Memphis for like cash flow play. Let's talk about appreciation play. What would be an example of an appreciation play property?
Yeah, like the greater sort of Atlanta metro,
right.
The Dallas-Fort Worth metro, the corridor between Dallas and sort of Austin, the Carolinas, and then certain pockets of, even there's certain pockets inside of Tennessee that we would say that there's good appreciation play, and then Ohio as well.
Let's pick on, but choose a city. Let's pick on that one.
Let's just say Atlanta.
Okay, because it's just loaded with jobs coming. It's absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
Right. The Hyundai SK On is building a plant northwest of the city, so I'm looking at that area. And SK On, which is a Korean company. Are you familiar with them? You heard of them?
No.
Oh, okay. So
maybe if I see the spelling.
So they're one of Korea's largest companies.
Okay.
No, it's literally SK.
Okay.
ON is.
Okay.
I don't know what it stands for.
South Korea something.
Probably, yeah, there you go. Duh. I didn't even clue in.
I'm a horrible Korean. Yeah.
But yeah, they built a plant already. They opened their doors in 2022 northeast of the city, Atlanta, and they already have 3,000. They already hired more than they expected. They already have 3,000 jobs. Probably paying somewhere between 55 to 60,000, I'm guessing, right? So yeah, Atlanta is loaded with manufacturing jobs. Anyways, yeah, let's go through an Atlanta example, suburb of Atlanta example.
Yeah, so you could go mid 200s, and then you're probably looking at like low 2000s rent, high 1000s, depending on the price range, sliding up and down.
Right.
So backing into sort of like mid 5 cap rates. So cash flow.
We're laughing because we know not everyone understands cap rates, but for the folks who've looked at commercial real estate and anywhere, you know what a cap rate is. But again, just knowing these rents Like if you can get 2K rent on a 200K property, that's better than you can find in Canada.
Right.
And we're talking about 200K, mid 200K American dollars. So the amount of capital you have to come out of pocket is way less than I think anything in Canada.
Yeah. And like if you look at the appreciation there too, and then this kind of like sidestepping the conversation, but you know, we'll write like that is what we call like a B class. And you know, we'll write that up anywhere between 4 to 6%, 4 to 5%, roughly 4% year over year. But like we have data showing that in Atlanta specifically, so there's a lot of institutional dollars there, like these
Tons.
Lots of REITs, private equity firms, hedge funds buying up houses left, right, and center. 1/3 of the single family homes are actually owned by institutions, which is like from an investor perspective, great.
Yeah.
Because you know they've got the big dollars to invest data. They have their back channel analysts and know where the manufacturing jobs are coming. So it is a safe piggyback strategy, right? But from like sort of like understanding the market, they uphold a certain level of quality of the neighborhoods, and then they have a study showing the density of different metro sort of zip code subdivisions in around Atlanta based on how much is owned by an institution, and the larger density of ownership of institutions leads to a higher appreciation rate. So
interesting.
Yeah, so
I can see why.
Yeah, and
they're probably not slumlords.
Yeah, and you know they're looking at, and again, think about how we're conservatively modeling 4 to 5%. Like these areas are seeing 8 to 11% annual year-over-year appreciation. The more density you get with an institutional presence.
And folks are welcome to fact check us, because I tell people like I make money selling real estate. Go check your own facts. So I was literally on Tricon's website. So the REIT out of Toronto, they list their properties for rent on the website and the address, because they're for rent ads. Right. So the address is disclosed. I can go Google that address and go find it on Zillow and go find out what they paid for it. Right. So folks, you can go do this yourself. Go do your own fact checking. Do your own research. So I know like Tricon was buying houses for like $200,000, and now they're selling them for like $300,000. Like, so the appreciation was not 4-6%.
Exactly. Yeah. And we actually showed those slides, I think, at the workshop, one of your US investing workshops. We showed the slides for the density of these institutions. Yeah, Tricon is one of the big players.
And then so I've just focused on Tricon because they're a Canadian company. It's just I only have so much time to research. There's so many cities to research, and again, every time I research, I find new pieces of information. I'm like, holy cow! Like this opportunity just keeps getting better and better. Now, specific to Tricon, I noticed their properties they buy are quite nice. They're probably all A class, I'm guessing. They even do some build to rent. Like they build new construction for the intention of renting it out. And they're quite nice. Like we're talking about like 2,500 square foot and above square houses, detached, big lots. Is that generally what the institutions are doing?
So the institutions, they do typically there. So they like we'll go into sort of a history and sort of the model of the institution. Their institution, they've got like an exit strategy, right? They're very different from the retail investor or the everyday like mom and pop investor who's trying to build generational wealth. The institutional investor cycles their inventory, so they bank a lot on the appreciation. So the cash flow is like sort of it's important, but not as important as the appreciation. They actually turn out 20% of their portfolio on like a rolling 5-year basis, and then replenish by net new. So kind of moving back with like pre-institutional date, the institutions really came in after the 2008 mortgage crisis when they realized how stable of an asset class was. So they came in trying to buy different like what we call scattered SFR, which is like houses all over. But they realized how they didn't have the technology or the know-how to kind of operate that in-house. So they went to whatever's easier, and for them the easiest is throwing tons of money at developers, buying these things and build for rent, BFR or BTR, build to rent. And that way it's easy for them. They just buy it. A lot of things are covered by the developer warranty, and then they wait a few years and they sell them off and go build more. So it's quite cyclical. They don't hold generationally like everyday investors trying to seek financial security would do. So
Right.
different strategies for sure. But yeah, build for rent or build to rent new construction are great strategies too, safe strategies.
Interesting. Because just even for my own research, my what I think when I see like Tricon and these build to rent strategies is I don't want to compete with them head on. So I would think, to just thinking out loud, I'm thinking I would go below them in terms of grade. So I want to be in B and C.
Yeah, like they I wouldn't say you're competing, because sometimes you can get slivers of what they're doing, and we often sometimes get some of those. But again, their strategy is completely different than say what you and I would invest for, right? We're thinking about our kids, we're thinking about holding. They're not holding that long, right? They'll cycle those things off.
Interesting.
Yeah, and that's like some of the off-market deals are these institutions rolling off their inventory. Right. Because they got to hit their returns, and usually the returns are with their exit strategy.
You said a keyword that every investor wants to hear: off-market. So can you explain that? How do you guys access off-market deals? Because it's a common question I get. Does Share do off-market deals? They do. They just, I don't know what people are thinking, but yeah, talked about where deals are coming from, including because you get a large feed of off-market deals.
Yes. Yeah. So we use it's our connection with institutions. Like to your point, like I mentioned, a lot of these institutions, they do roll off and have to sell off a portion of their portfolio every single year.
Yeah. And like any sophisticated seller, they're going to try to sell to their network first.
Yeah.
Before they go to the market.
Exactly. And so yeah, they'll try to offload to the private network. We're in that sort of pool of private network. And then there's wholesalers who actually work for these large institutions. So not all institutions are in the build for rent or build to rent. Some of them still do play in the same world we play in. So they have wholesalers that do quite a bit of volume. We're talking almost 100 a month. They can search. So we tap into them because they look at us as an institution. So we're part of their deal flow, and we'll say, here's what we're looking for. And every month they'll start looking for these off-market deals.
Yeah, actually, after seeing how things go in the States, I remember we met that one gentleman who's a young wholesaler.
Yep.
He wanted to scale from like 60 units to 100 units because part of it was he's switching his clientele from retail mom and pop people to institutions. So I told one of my good friends, like, who's a wholesaler, hey, have you ever considered just selling to a REIT? So I made an introduction for him, and I'll check in on how he's doing with that, because this makes a lot of sense. Yeah, you can do way more transactions. Yeah, and your life is likely easier.
Yeah, that's like the wholesaler's sort of goal, is to get in with an institution. Yeah, right? It's like I can source deals at scale. Yeah. I've got a big team. Yeah, and yeah, we can feed. But like, yeah, that is the goal. And then as the wholesaler, we do more deals. They become more loyal. And they just start feeding us deals.
Yeah. So like business ideas for the wholesalers listening, like why not sell to an institution? Yeah. Versus like trying to sell to, because there's a lot of people that are on, a lot of wholesalers, they complain about people try to do deals and they don't even have the money. Right. They're just trying to tie up the deal and then go raise the money.
Yeah. So like, yeah, our relationship is a bit different now with our wholesalers. They know we've got the money because we work with our clients. We do all the sort of proof of funds, the KYC, the know your client. And they know that when we're looking for a deal, they have our sort of term-specific deals. So they look specifically for our clients.
Now, another question I get a lot is, how long has Share been in operation? So how long has Share been in operation?
Yeah, since like 2021, roughly. I mean, conceptually, we've been thinking about it for quite some time. 2020, experimented a few things, but I would say 2021 is probably official. Right, when we got together and started.
But your CFO, Carmen, CPA on both sides of the border, Canadian, but she lives in Tampa Bay mostly. She's essentially acted as an asset manager for her clients for decades.
Yeah, she got in like the 2008, like from the beginning. Right. So yeah, she's been doing this for quite some time. She's the one that introduced me to it, introduced the philosophies of tying and investing in terms of cash flow and wealth, and then said, hey, this is the asset class to do it with. So yeah, she's been in it for quite a long time.
Which is fascinating, because you don't normally hear about accountants, financial planners recommending real estate, direct ownership of real estate as investments, because generally you don't get paid off of that.
Yeah, and like to that point, I think that may be a Canadian statement because like so to give you the context, I met Carmen while I was living in the U.S. And needed an accountant that understood the Canadian and U.S. system for Canadians or Canadians living in the U.S. And she became our tax or an accountant for my business that was based in California. And then I asked her to do my personal stuff because I didn't know how to do this cross-border stuff. And so she got a glimpse of my whole portfolio, which was not that big, but I had a couple of Ontario properties, and that's the conversation that opened up U.S. rental homes.
Yeah, because your investing here sucked. It wasn't making you money.
Yeah, like I think I made money. It didn't feel like I was making money because I was so highly involved, and it was just a lot of capital up front.
And this is what year was this?
This was 2010-ish. So like,
so stuff was cheap compared to now.
Yeah, but back then it did not feel cheap, and like to save that much money as like someone in their 20s was pretty tough.
Yeah. Right. And so, and Carmen has other clients like you. And she was recommending this to. I imagine she was recommending American investments to pretty much all of her clients.
Yeah, I've got in the dozens. For sure. So like prior when I met her, the reason why she could sell this so easily is because she used to go on like to sell these types of homes and then bundle it with sort of the tax consulting side of things. Right. Yeah.
And so did she start advising clients to buy U.S. income properties back in like starting from like 2008?
I don't know if it started back then, but I believe it was like her foray was that, and then like she had gotten in, and then she realized and she devised a system. And, along with her real estate counterparts, then started going into that world.
Because that's essentially the beginning of Share.
Yeah.
It wasn't called that.
Yeah, it just wasn't called that. So she was doing, let's call it the manual, local version of Share, and that's what we actually want to kind of open up the country and centralize it to a meaning of like giving access, unbiased access to different regions. And doing it all online.
Right, because correct me if I'm wrong, the back in 2008 it started with just Florida.
Yes.
And then an eventual expansion to New York?
Yeah. So like, and expansion we'll use loosely because it was just because her real estate counterpart had personal like business in New York and Florida. Yeah. So it was turnkey because he owned the whole operation from top to bottom. Right. But would we say that you should only invest in Florida or you should only invest in New York? No, right? But we did it because that's typically how it worked. You worked with your agent who has their own network and work within their network. And now we're saying Share, now that we have access to data and technology, we should open it up and then pick based on client preference.
Right. Because when people ask me like how long Share been around, like, well, they've been operating like this, not under the banner of Share for a long time.
Yeah.
And Carmen has lots of successful clients who cash flow significantly in U.S. dollars, including Canadian clients.
Yeah.
And in my experience, there's not many people in Canada who cash flow significantly from their portfolio, which was what led me down the path. Like, I need to learn more. Right? Like your own story of 19 properties, is it?
20.
20?
Yeah.
I need to check your slide. I was looking over your slides. I think I counted 19. You might have locked one off somewhere, but you haven't even seen them. So yeah, you can't name all the addresses, can you?
Oh no, I can't. I can name cities. That's it. Yeah.
So you couldn't even find them if you wanted to.
No.
My point is, you have no idea what these properties are that you own.
No, I don't. Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah. And how much do you cash flow a month?
Over 10.
$10 a month?
10,000.
I'm joking because I know Andrew doesn't like to talk about his personal stuff. You cash flow over 10,000 American dollars a month.
Yes. But, again, I'm to be aggressive, and this is sort of Share's philosophy, is if it's too much cash flow, you should be refinancing, get more. So,
yes.
Let's say it was 10,000 before I, got more active, and now I want to go out and buy more. So that's going to quickly shrink.
And you've been investing for how long in the States?
Since 2011, but very fragmented until sort of the last few years.
Right.
So yeah, inception was like 2011, a little bit after like 2013, then huge gap. And then when I started to reinvest, that's when share came about. I was like, oh, this is still so difficult, so risky, and I need a faster way to do this. And I need to think beyond Florida and New York. So
Yeah, Florida has lots of hurricane risk and climate risk and insurance risk. My lawyer literally said, you'll get your first insurance policy, you may not get a second
yeah,
in Florida.
yeah,
And his second home's in Tampa, so he knows very well, and he owns lots of property in Florida.
yeah.
Right? This is my own lawyer's advice. So when people ask me, why aren't you investing in Florida? Like, my lawyer will strangle me, choke me.
I was just speaking to a client in Florida, and he was saying how now his insurer, I think said it was Citizen, which is a state-backed company.
Ooh. I don't like it when government's involved.
Yeah, it's scary. It's a bad
scary.
sign.
Yeah.
So he's saying that they're cracking down on second homes, investment homes, on their rates. So now that's going to change. So like they're finding loopholes. Not loopholes, but they're finding ways to claw their portion of the insurance.
Which makes sense because you're less likely to repair your second home versus if it's your primary, you'll fix it. Even come out of pocket if you have to. Less likely if it's an income property. Which we're actually seeing because I hear from my friends that are on the ground, like there are literally houses that are condemned and being sold for lot value. They have their insurance money. They don't want to fix it though. They just want to sell it. Yeah, Andrew Hines was telling me that the days on market in Cape Coral is 200 days.
Ouch. That's nuts.
How's that for an exit strategy?
Yeah, that's tough.
Your average is 200 days to sell.
Oh, yikes.
A complete buyer's market.
Yeah. Ouch.
Dude, I've never seen anything like that in my career. Yeah. For a house. This is for a house. Like, anyways.
Yeah.
I forget where I was going. Oh, so based on the calls you're having with Canadians, I think everyone's goal should be to achieve $100,000 of cash flow a year. So based on the people you've spoken to, how would you suggest they build that portfolio?
Look, I think the first thing is they just got to get going.
Break the ice.
Yeah, break the ice.
Yeah.
And then get in sooner than later, because I think what Share is actually kind of shooting ourselves in the foot is giving so much access to information. So now they're like picking and choosing. But when I asked them, did you do this kind of exercise on the Canadian side? They're like, no.
No, there's too much information available.
Yeah, so like
I'm analysis process. Like crazy. There's just so much to learn.
They're like,
such a big country.
It's like, could we get like a B+ school rating? Like, there's a B-. It's a good neighborhood. Or like an A- school. Like, yeah, okay.
Too much.
But I think first is just get in.
So just to share, I can't name any of the schools that are near my rental properties.
Yeah, neither can I.
Because my point is, like, I know how it works here in Canada. To build houses, there has to be a school nearby.
Yeah.
So that's good enough for me.
Yeah. So yeah. First thing is action. Like whether it's A, B, or C, get in. Because again, once we're in and you own a single asset, whether it's A, B, or C, there's opportunity to kind of let that grow at the very least. Even if it's just the one property, we'll put that on a refinancing schedule of like maybe every few years. And maybe that will like triple over the next 5-6 years, right? So just move, get in.
Break the ice.
Yeah. What we'll do is help you soft land on the right home based on your risk appetite, your risk and return profile.
Sorry, before you even just help them identify the opportunity, what about all like legal and accounting? Because that's like the number one question I get. I'm sure it's coming a lot as well.
Yeah.
Like how do people, like, you'll help people with the legal process, like setting up an entity?
Yes. Yeah. So we try to keep the conversations limited to the U.S. real estate investing. We try to eliminate the broader scope of their personal portfolio in Canada and say, look, if you want to set up and purchase a home, this is sort of the simplest way to go about it. And here are the pros and cons. Here's what we would do on an annual tax filing basis on the U.S. side, and then you would hand these documents off to your Canadian accountant and whatever, and this is how it would work in theory. And if you're okay with that, we can go ahead and start setting up your entities for you.
Right. And just to remind folks, your CFO is an accountant in both Canada and the USA.
Yeah.
And has been doing this for decades for her past clients, including yourself.
Yeah, so we've spent a significant amount of time and money consulting different parties. I think there's sort of a three-prong approach or three-prong lens you want to take is liability, tax, and then lender-friendly is sort of the trifecta that we look at the type of entity and structure you want to set up.
Yeah.
So we take that approach for Canadians, and then if they're ready to go, we'll go ahead and set up that entity.
Yeah,
by far, Canada is the toughest. Like if it's any other country, it would just be an LLC. But the Canadian government wants their piece.
Yeah, and that's actually something important to bring up, because my understanding is, I'm not an accountant, folks. Neither is Andrew. Is your total tax is going to be the same amount.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just who you're paying it to.
Yeah. You might have to report here and there what's happening, but yeah, I always say that it's like investing in Canada.
Mm-hmm. And then how much to create to set up your legal whatever in the state that's going to own the property? That always comes up as well.
Yeah, so we use a third party, but again, it's client specific. So let's just say there's two parts to the fee. One is to our third party that's actually setting that up, and then the other part is the state fee, which is state specific. So every state has their different costs to set it up. Mm-hmm. But for the example of, let's just say we went with Wyoming, which is landlord liability, high liability protection, and privacy laws, and then low cost. Mm-hmm. That would roughly be around $380 roughly for a single LLC or per entity.
That's it?
Yes.
That's cheap.
Yeah. But the structures we recommend is an LLC with an LP, so that's 2. So times that by 2.
Right. Got it. And then just from what I hear from my wife is generally people should expect your accounting fees, whatever your accounting fees in Canada, be roughly the same in the States.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's fair.
And then what I've been saying to people is, I think my wife agrees, I think generally people should have a plan to at least own 3 properties. To justify the expenses. Yeah,
I would just say once you're in there, it's just so much faster to grow your portfolio in the US. So I would say, your goal should be to get 5+ over the next 10 years.
Hang on. We're talking about, because I think everyone's goal should be to generate 106 figures in cash flow.
Yes.
So you can't do that with 5 properties.
No. Yeah. I mean, yes, no, but there's
that'd be improbable.
Yeah.
Because it is easier to scale because everything's more affordable. You find properties like cash flow all day. Mm-hmm. There's lots of upside. And the financing our friend Scott Dillingham he said it's 10 times easier to scale a portfolio in the States than here in Canada.
Yeah, 100%.
And he would know firsthand since he's
a lender.
He's a lender.
Yeah.
He did 400 mortgages in 1 year, I believe,
in
Canada, which is nuts.
Yeah.
So he's very well versed in what the Canadian market's like. Because I know Cher's been having discussions with investors to do a refinance in about 2-3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you explain that?
Yeah, because the rates are at an all-time high. And that's probably why we're seeing a lot more Canadians gravitate towards the higher returning homes, the C's, the 6s and 7s, is to kind of cover the interest rate. Mm-hmm. So we want to obviously think about how do we improve your situation and how do we actually grow situation in terms of the house, how do you make it cash flow better, and then how do we actually pull the equity out and buy another one. So we are saying if we go and lock the house in today, it's cash flow neutral. Don't worry, in 3 years after we refinance, we'll pull out 50+% of the original capital and go get another one, and your cash flow will increase drastically. But your goal now is to secure your piece of the pie before, as you know, the institutions are gearing up and they're ready to come in and start buying a bunch. So that's what we're saying. Get your piece. We'll help you secure it. Make sure it's cash flow positive, and then once the rates drop, and then we'll go out and refinance that thing.
Because I've had some people say, why not just wait till interest rates drop? So Jerome Powell, the Fed, has committed to 3 rate cuts this year. So my thing is I want to get in before the rate cut.
Yeah.
Even Barbara Corcoran's been, she it's funny how the media works. They keep repeating the same thing she's saying.
Yeah.
That she thinks the market will pivot once we have our first cut.
Yeah. So in our world, the single family rental sort of price range, from, let's call it the ceiling of $350K and down, we haven't seen much price fluctuation. It's pretty resilient. Where you see the price fluctuation or the dip is like the major metros where they're well over like $700,000, and majority of them are primary residents or like, you know, very expensive real estate, New York, LA, San Francisco. That's where they saw the major prices. Year over year, we've been pretty stable.
Yeah.
And in fact, like we're already seeing increased competition tick back up with all the speculation of interest rate drops. So what's going to happen as soon as the interest rate dips? The buying is going to start picking up. And you mentioned earlier with Blackstone buying Tricon, you know, that is a good sign. And I think even 4 weeks before that, I think it was Blackstone or two other funds had said that we've raised another $1 billion to start deploying and to get ready to start deploying again in single family rental homes. So the institutions are coming in and they're ready. They've got a war chest. So secure your slice, let them come in and ride the, you know, the tide.
Because I want to get in again before these rate cuts. So I plan on writing offers in May.
Yeah, like I think the speculation is that this is another '08 opportunity where, you know, you can come in and then everything is kind of smooth sailing. But that's why I think the retail investment model is a lot more safe than the REIT model, because they have to cycle constantly, right? So they
have no choice. They have to deploy capital
they
all
have
times.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So whereas as a individual owner trying to build wealth, like I've got patience. This is pretty boring and slow. Like I can choose when to deploy because I'm cash flow neutral or positive because I've got a 30-year fixed mortgage. I know my bottom line, so I'll choose when to offload my house.
Right.
All right. So yeah, I get in now. I don't think it's as bad as the '08 mortgage crisis, again, because our price is pretty solid. But that's the sort of sentiment is like, I better get in now because as interest rates drop, I know the prices are going to start going up.
Right, because I want to get in before the doors open on all these manufacturing plants as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
the thousands of people have to pour into the area because they got jobs.
Yes. Yeah.
Like literally, I was looking at Hyundai in Savannah, Georgia. Like they're promising average pay to be $58,000, which is double the state average.
Right.
And 58,000 is about 78,000 Canadian, which is higher than the Canadian household average.
Right.
Right. So
Savannah's nice.
can't wait to go in May. And then so people ask about refinancing questions, because again, like American mortgages are so different.
Yeah.
Because my plan would be to refinance in about 2-3 years when rates bottom. I've been modeling 4%, and then just my own modeling, I can go from like break even to like $300 a month cash flow just by refinancing.
Yeah.
Not even doing anything to the property. What is the process like for refinancing?
Yeah, so what we'll do is, so the simple part about refinancing when you have a tenant in place is they just take your actual rent and they'll look at your hard expenses, and then we'll push that out to sort of thousands of lenders and see who comes back. Majority of the time it's usually the same, so we might choose one or two that we're closer to, get a term sheet, and then we should get like a verbal within 48 hours and then proceed with the process there.
That easy?
Yeah, well, it still takes time to execute. Usually 30 days is what we want as a grace period. But yeah, we'll get like a verbal within 48 hours and then term sheet in probably another 7 days.
Do you have any idea how hard it is to refinance here in Canada?
Yeah, once it's leased and there's a hard lease in place, it's actually a lot easier. So they say there's two. There's like one when it's unleased, like when you just purchased it, there's nobody in there. They'll just take what's called market rent. So they'll do their own analysis on what they think the rent rate will be. Yeah. You provide your hard costs of property management, tax, insurance.
Condo fee.
Yeah, and then they'll make that a judgment. But when there's a tenant in place, it's so much easier.
Because here it's basically it's a brand new mortgage is basically how they treat it.
Oh, okay.
So I have to requalify.
Oh, I see.
So they want like all my corporate docs.
Oh. Yeah, no, it's easier to refinance than definitely like coming off, because you now have a track record as well,
yeah,
so to speak, and there's a tenant in place.
Understand I'm asking a lot from my lender to when they like, I need to see all your stuff.
Yeah.
And so they have to look at all my stuff.
Oh, really?
You know how many documents I have to send them?
Yeah, like, yeah, we've had like one super difficult one, but that was on a portfolio, right? This was on a one-off, like they may ask for an inspection, they may just do a drive-by, like it really is lender specific. They have their own criteria.
Right. And then is there penalties to break the mortgage?
So those are the things that are like, let's call it default. There are, but everything is negotiable with these lenders. So I would just, so default, I always say 30-year fixed rate with sort of a 5-year prepayment step down. So over the 5 years, it goes from like 5%, 4%, 3, 2, 1. And then as long as we know what the strategy is up front, then we'll say, hey, lender, can you make an adjustment and make it no payments after, do like a 3-year step down, 3, 2, 1.
Right.
They'll be like, okay, fine, but here's what you have to do instead. Yeah. Either you pay something up front or you take an extra percentage points on the interest rate.
And you're guiding your clients through all of this.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why we'll model like 0.3% higher, potentially from coming in, because we want to sort of pre-negotiate the exit. And
then I have all this PTSD from high rates. So my thinking is once rates bottom, hopefully 4%, I'll lock it in for 30 years.
Done.
And then remove my interest rate risk for 30 years.
Yeah. And then in a couple of years, as the rent rates increase, we'll probably be able to pull out some more cash from that house, do it again. But yeah, you're set. You know what your bottom line is. And to my earlier point, if another recession or up market comes, that is just you being being in the most opportunistic position to either sell, refinance, whatever you want to do.
And then when in my own modeling, when I look at what the 10-year cash flow is going to be, what my cash flow will be in 10 years, I'm like, it ranges between like 6 to 10%.
Yeah.
Sorry, $6,000 to $10,000 US dollars a year.
Yeah.
If I held for 10 years. And so then I like I said, I always post to everyone, please poke holes in my theory. Find me something that beats this.
There's validation on an institutional spending billions of dollars in this space that have validated this thesis, right? So people that are smarter than me and have way more money to hire smarter people than me that have, identified this as an opportunity.
Right. And people need to understand, like, institutional investors are selling to institutions.
Yeah, it's all cyclical. It's all incestual to a certain degree.
Well, but like these can be like teachers' pension fund, for example.
Yeah.
Right. So their diligence process is incredible.
Yeah.
Like the highest level you can possibly ever see.
Yeah.
Right. Or like CPP, who has a wonderful track record of making above target returns.
Yeah.
Like their diligence process is like the highest you'll ever see. And they own $1 billion of U.S. real estate too.
Yeah, and I think it's a little ironic too, because it's the same individuals, I think, that are picketing the fund's lobbies.
Yeah, go picket CPP.
And it's your pension fund that's investing in these real estate trusts.
But I think it's also interesting. Why does CPP invest in the States in single-family homes, but not here in Canada?
It's a very secure investment. They know their model. The model is safe. It's backed by brick and mortar.
So we're hosting another workshop April 13th, which is why I had you out, so I can talk about it. Because, I remember the first time we did it, and remember the faces? Remember the relief in the room when people, existing landlords could see what was available to them?
Yeah.
In a relatively passive investment.
Yeah.
While they still maintain direct ownership.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like this is clients have shared, they still own the house.
It's theirs, 100% on title. Our name is not associated to anything on title.
No profit share?
No profit share. We don't take an equity split. It's theirs.
Right. And you take fees?
Just fees. Management fees. Yep.
And I'll share a slide on at April 13th where I went through Tricon's annual report and I told you like they have very significant performance fees.
Yeah, they take a lot of the upside.
Right. Which is like, wonderful. You're making everyone money. Yep. I want everyone to make money. So you contractually said you'd take it. You took it. That's your right.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm cheap, so I'm not investing in a REIT. Because the analogy I tell investors, like for people who understand what a REIT is, like I'm investing essentially like a REIT, but I maintain 100% ownership, 100% equity, no profit share.
Yep.
So again, I still ask people, find me something better. And no one's really come back with anything.
Yeah.
Like I tell people all the time, you can make more money on your own doing direct investment.
Yeah.
But that means you're active.
Yeah.
You're risking way more.
Yeah.
Right.
I'd say for the sort of risk reward profile, I've always said it, single family is the safest. But yeah, to your point, it's low risk, which is a boring investment.
Yeah.
And there are higher returning assets and that you can invest in, but they're probably more involved and higher risk.
Yeah. Like for example, like my friends who do like Airbnbs, people always ask like Airbnb, do you guys do Airbnbs and duplexes, triplexes?
Yeah, we don't do short-term rental. It's a higher risk, higher effort, higher operating costs, and then duplex, triplex. We'll present them if they come across, but it's not within our core sort of logic and algorithm because they may not be in the same sort of regions that we're looking for, where there is like a family of 4 and a dog, or maybe something like that.
Just my own research, I like for take short-term rentals for example, I can't find institutional grade property managers.
No, yeah, you those are typically local mom and pop shops
Yeah.
that specialize in single family, in short-term rentals.
Because my point is, for all investors, I always tell them line up 3 property managers wherever you're investing, because you will turn over your property managers.
Mhm.
So you better have plan Bs and Cs, and even going forward, you need to keep planning for, if you lose one, you still go find another one. You still should always have a roster of 3 property managers that are high quality that you would hire any day. That's not easy to do.
Yeah.
And if it's not single family or apartment buildings, right? Because that seems to be where the big players will play.
Yeah.
And anything in between, there's no big player.
Yeah, there isn't a big player. I mean, there's some operations locally that are big players, but not like multi-state.
Yeah, because I want boring.
Yeah.
I want like, I want single point of contact.
Yeah.
Right. So shares my single point of contact for our properties, and I don't want to ever talk to the other property managers.
Yeah. Nor should you.
All right. So what are we talking about April 13th at the U.S. Investing Workshop?
How to get in and how to scale, how to get to retirement, that safety net that everyone wants and desires, and just, I think, lacks the guidance. And, we're going to provide that. So, yeah, April 13th.
Yeah, Andrew, I want to thank you for coming into my world when you did.
Thank you.
Because, again, I know your calls with the 150 Canadians they're not lengthy, but if you did, you'd hear more of the war stories.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And again, that's why I feel we are doing community service for Canadians, especially Ontarians and BC and Quebec, where the landlord laws are not almost.
Yeah, and I always joke about that, saying that speaking to Canadians and helping Canadians, it's philanthropy work, it's charity work.
I literally had an investor misstate. He called, instead of calling it the landlord tenant board, he accidentally called it the tenant protection board.
Hilarious.
And that's the issue. Actually, leads to a good question. Does anything like that exist in the markets that you guys operate?
No, it just kind of runs through the regular system. There's this. It's like a science in terms of how it works per region, of like what it takes to sort of set off a trigger and kick off the eviction process. But no, there isn't that I'm aware of any sort of landlord tenant board, which I'm still. That's crazy, but yeah, it's your investment, it's your money. Why don't you have control over it? That's kind of a weird thing, right?
Your tax dollars pay for legal aid for the free legal aid for the tenants too. We landlords get none. We have no legal aid protection.
Interesting. Yeah. It's like, how do you build? I mean, real estate is the path to wealth. It's like, everyone knows that it's a safe bet, but like now you kind of just remove that whole asset class and this whole thought of, hey, I'm going to build this generational wealth through real estate when you can't control it. So, yeah.
And I've shown you some condo deals, haven't I? Just for education purposes.
Yeah. I've seen those performas, yeah.
I don't see how anyone would ever buy a pre-construction condo again for investment purposes when they see what we got.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think we're going to disrupt this market.
Yep, definitely. Looking forward to it.
All right. Yeah. Next step is April 13th, Saturday, April 13th. We're offering it hybrid. You'll be there. Carmen, your CFO, will be there. Dimitri will be there. Your chief investment officer. Scott Dillingham's going to be there. He did 400 mortgages in the year once. Everyone's going to be there in person, so I recommend in person. I think we're almost sold out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. We have some room online, though.
Okay.
So we're simulcasting over Zoom, so we'll have room online as well.
Okay. Awesome.
All right. Thanks for doing this, Andrew.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for watching. If you want to learn how to invest in real estate from scratch, my team teaches beginners how to use the #1 investment strategy that I personally use in a virtual free training class every month. Go to investortraining.ca/YouTube to register for our next class. The link's also in the description as well. I publish at least 2 to 3 videos a week here, so subscribe if you want to keep learning from seasoned investors like myself and my guests. And if you're just starting out, feel free to ask questions and comment below, and I do the best to answer each of those comments and questions myself. Again, if you're ready to learn the nitty-gritty about real estate investing from a professional investor, register for our next virtual class. That's at investortraining.ca/YouTube. Thanks again for watching. See you in the next video.